Welcome to Conscious Compassion, hosted by Charles Gray
and Laura Darrell. This podcast will share stories of the different ways that people deal with low moments in their lives.
How they manifest the drive to overcome obstacles and keep pushing forward. A fluid space with media, poetry, music, literary readings, or just plain storytelling.
Coupled with in-depth interviews of the storytellers so that listeners can learn, relate, and be inspired.
Spend a moment with us as we explore creative coping strategies for these chaotic times. Conscious Compassion,
where we share because we care.
Welcome to Conscious Compassion. I'm Charles Gray.
And I'm Laura Darrell.
And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Michael Demby Kane. I've had the extraordinary honor of working with him in the past in a production of Five Guys Named Mo at the Ford's Theater. I think that's where we first met. And now we get to talk and discover a bit about his journey. So, Michael, why don't you give us a little synopsis of life pre, and then we can get into what we're really going to talk about today.
Well, good morning, or good afternoon, actually. Charles, that was the best experience, Five Guys Named Mo at the Ford's Theater. Certainly a great stepping stone to probably both of our careers. But before that, I moved to the city in '84 after typical growing up. I'm from Mississippi, wound up going to college at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois, then made my way to Nashville, Tennessee, where I worked at Opryland, where everything started for me as far as show business goes. The bug really kicked in there. Eventually moved to New York, and like you, Charles, and like all of us, hit the pavement. Trying to make it happen in a show, and got my first show, Honky Tonk Nights, probably in '85, that next year. And then kept working, was very blessed and lucky to keep working and have opportunities and blessings that I didn't know that I was even having at the moment. But as we all know, God has a plan. And pretty much for 25 years was either on Broadway or a national tour or an industrial or a commercial or something like that. So I count myself as one of the lucky, blessed ones.
But you also have like you all have your own industry.
Yes.
Dance.
I guess our company's 27 years old now. My partner Joe had the idea, after teaching dance conventions around the country, of doing an education forward convention, which means that we are geared towards getting young performers not only from their local studios into a professional setting, but into an educational setting. So we use dance and education because there's no such thing as a non-intelligent performer. We all have to use our brains as well as our talent. And so certainly being as educated as possible sees you through a career, as well as whether you transition out of that career. We have to be smart people. So that's how we came up with New York City Dance Alliance. And so, like I said, that company is about 27 years old, and it umbrellas an education program for dancers, as well as a production company that we produce different things. We've produced industrial events all over the world. So that's sort of what we do as a family business. And then as a micro business, I have a show business career.
Wow. So you sound like you are not busy at all.
My partner, Joe Lantieri, laughs because when we met, we were 23 years old. And I said to him, one of the first things I said was, I can see myself getting old with you. And he said, who's 23 that talks about retiring? But my whole life, I've been like, we'll get to a point where we can just sit by a lake and we'll retire. Well, that's not happened. If anything, life has ramped up, and especially with COVID, everyone's had to pivot and everyone's had to figure or reinvent themselves in a new way. So to answer your question, Laura, we are a couple that is 24/7 trying to make it happen.
Charles and I were just discussing how we're both people who don't want to sit on our bums waiting for the phone to ring. We thrive off of creating, hence how this podcast began and why we're so grateful that you're with us today to tell
Thank
tell
you,
us
but
your
you
story.
can't. I don't think anybody. This lesson is for everyone in their lives. My partner Joe said to me, well, to a girl one day, "Perfect Rockette. This girl was beautiful. She lived out here in New Jersey, and he said, you know, the Rockettes are not going to come down your street and looking for you. You got to go to New York and look for them. You got to make it happen. Nobody's looking for you. You got to make it happen."
Yeah.
No matter how talented you are, nobody's going, "Oh, we're going to sit here and wait for Michael to walk through the door." No, you've got to make it happen. Whatever it is, you've got to get out there and hit the pavement and make it happen.
Absolutely. If they don't know about you, then what can they possibly do? What can you expect of them?
Yeah, you're the most talented person sitting in your living room.
Exactly. That's funny. So, your journey, everything was looking up and looking very active, and then life kicked in.
Life kicked in. And I should say that life probably kicked in before that because, as we all know, as performers, we get older and we have to make an adjustment again. And my adjustment was probably like many when the phone stops ringing and you are no longer the hot young commodity. What do you do? Thank goodness I did have our companies to work for, and I had a way to move forward. But as a performer, that all sort of stopped and shifted, and I shifted along with it and became very suburban and very, sort of, this is my life and it's fine. Well, life happens and I had a cancer scare. And we took care of that. And certainly when you hear the cancer word, it takes your breath away.
Yeah.
I was lucky that they found it in time. It was kidney cancer. It was encapsulated, and they went in and I had a surgery, and it was pretty much done. I didn't have to have chemo or anything like that. But then, as life will do, you have another thing. I had to have a hip replacement. And then I had to have another hip replacement, and then sort of it set off. You're going to be 50, and a lot of your parts are breaking, and so that was about 10 years of that, and ultimately I did wind up as a result of having what's called a nephrectomy, which is when they take your kidney, which is what they did with my cancer. They took my left kidney, but it set me up for a perilous journey. I got an infection which attacked my right kidney, and I wound up on dialysis. And so I was on dialysis for 2.5 years. And you do what you do, and that's just try to survive. You try to live, because so many people pass away on dialysis. It's very rough on your body. And so you just try to live. And that took me took me down to a place that there was nothing. It was just me and God. And there was really nothing that anybody else could do for me. And I had to get right with myself, and I had to get right with the things that are important in my life. And that is really more to help somebody, to do something that is of use to someone else other than myself. Because at the end of the day, when you are sick and you can't go out and do things, you can support people in other ways. You can have a kind word. You can open a door for somebody. You can do so many things, even in your sickly state, that are of service. And that helped me through those years when I didn't know from day to day whether anything was going to happen for me. And then one day, a stranger heard about me, and it was like a blink. his wife contacted my partner Joe, who contacted the hospital. And 6 weeks later, I was on the operating table and I got a kidney transplant.
Wow.
So I think that's when my life really began.
I'm sorry. I appreciate the brevity and the clarity, but I'm like, how did getting to know somebody end up with a kidney?
Well, this is the thing. We have this dance organization, like I said, New York City Dance Alliance, which is a national organization. And so I had not been on the scene for 2 years. And so people asked, where's Michael? Where's Michael? Michael has a renal failure. He's on dialysis. So this mom had saved her sister's life and knew all about kidney disease, wound up contacting my partner and said, so Michael needs a kidney. What are you doing about it? And he said, well, we're on a couple of lists. She says, no, you've got to fight. This is a fight. If you want a kidney, you've got to turn over every stone to find one. What blood type is he? He said, he's O positive. And she goes, oh, I think my husband's O positive. So she goes home and over dinner, cooks her husband a dinner and says,
oh my God,
honey.
Oh my God.
And now this man is a retired police officer. And so he helps people. That's what he has always done. And so she cooks him a nice dinner and she goes, you know, you've always said you wanted to help somebody. Well, this really nice guy who our daughters have been attending this convention all these years, his partner needs a kidney and you're O positive. You need to go get tested.
Oh my goodness.
And so George is his name. George said, okay, I'll go get tested. So they go get tested, and the preliminary test that he did at his local doctor said that he was a match.
Oh my goodness.
So from there, they have to fly themselves to New York. They don't live in New York. They're on their way to the hospital, and they don't even know my last name or my social security number. You can't just roll up to Mount Sinai and say, we're here to give Michael a kidney. They're like, who the heck are you?
Oh my goodness.
And so they had to go on Facebook and see, I'm going to cry, but they had to message Joe and find out my last name because they were like, we're going to save this guy. And they got a counselor at Mount Sinai, and they did this on their own. And we were sitting in the parking lot of a store on an off day from dialysis, and she called and said, do you want to have surgery in 6 weeks or do you want to have surgery in 3 months? And we just looked at each other and sort of slid down the seats of the car and just sat on the floorboards and cried.
Oh.
Because that's how quickly I got a kidney.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And didn't know me. I met him once. I met him at a winter dance intensive, and he said, oh, my wife says that I'm your guy. And I was like, who are you? He goes, oh, my name's George, and I'm thinking about giving you a kidney.
Oh my God.
And he goes, if we match, and he shook my hand. He said, if I can save you, I will.
Oh my God.
And that's the only time I ever saw him until we were at surgery. We had a 5:00 a.m. appointment, and he walked in, and that was the second time I ever saw him.
Wow.
That's mind-blowing.
That is so beautiful.
You just don't believe that there are people out there that are. Wow.
Because there's thousands of people at every hospital. There's thousands of people on lists.
Yes.
And so the odds of me getting one from a list being O positive. See, the thing that I didn't say is your blood type is everything to transplant. And O people are universal.
Right.
So the way the list works is when your name comes up, of course, your blood type comes up, but everything else about you, your DNA, certainly your family history, everything, whether you have children, whether you're married, all those things happen. They come into play with the transplant list.
Right. And
so
Wow.
anyone who's O positive, given all the other circumstances, anyone can use a universal O positive organ. So an A person, a B negative person, it doesn't matter. Everybody can use an O positive or an O negative organ. You have to wait. If you're O positive, you have to wait for your blood type to come up and for another O positive kidney to come up and for all the other things to line up.
Wow.
So I could have been on I could have been on a transplant list for 12 to 20 years.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Which I probably would have died first.
It's just so wonderful to hear stories like these at a time when our faith in humanity has been brought into question somewhat, and this is just...
there are people out there, and I came under a lot of flack on Facebook because when Black Lives Matter started and people were so anti-police, and certainly there are good police and bad police of every ilk. I had to say, I have a retired SWAT guy who never met me from Boston, which is one of the most racist places in
you
the
can
world,
imagine.
who heard about me, had never met me, and said, I will help you if I can.
Wow.
And so, as many bad police as there are, and I know that we're on the heels of George Floyd and all of that, and obviously a horrible, horrible police officer, but I know one good cop who went overboard, flew themselves in twice, and when they tell you the scenario of all the things that could go wrong in surgery, my donor had a lot of things go wrong. He never drank or smoked, so he couldn't take the pain medicine. So he pretty much gave me a kidney just on aspirin.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? They're like, when the doctor tells you, oh, there's less than 1% chance that these things will happen to you, all of them happened to George. So he was literally like 8 months trying to recover from saving my life.
God. Oh my God.
But the whole time he kept saying, I'm so happy I did this. I had to do this for you. And now we're such good friends.
I was going to say,
I adore him. And whenever
how
he
did that
goes
go?
to take his college-age daughter things or goes back and forth, he comes and spends the night. And I got a brother. I got a friend. I got a friend for life.
That is amazing.
It's amazing.
That is so amazing. What an extraordinary story. And that, if that doesn't give you hope.
The thing is about me is I was so sick that when I first got diagnosed with renal failure, I thought that was that for me. And I believed then that I would never leave the hospital. And I got okay with that. And that's the beautiful part about my story, is that I paid attention to what God was saying to me. And I heard the message that no matter what, whether I lived or whether I died, I was going to be okay. And I was good with that. Now, my family, I could see every time they came to the hospital, I could see the pain that they were in. But I was trying to make it okay for them because God took all of the fear. I was never scared. When I was 6 weeks in the hospital, and I was never scared. And I think that God gave me courage to go, no matter what, if you die, if your physical body is not here anymore, you still will be okay. And that helped me with dialysis, because dialysis, every day you go there because people die all the time. So you have to be ready. And so it gave me a perspective on when the 6 weeks happened where I was supposed to pass away and I didn't. We kind of had our eyes closed, and I didn't die. So then they put me on dialysis, and that really allowed my body to be okay for a while, to sort of be in neutral. But that neutral allowed me to see how people actually died. And some people died and they were angry with God. And some people died and they had a joy in their spirit. There was a woman, Helen, who had cancer and had renal failure. So she had dialysis and then she had chemotherapy on the off days.
Jesus.
So she was
Wow.
She was never well. And my last day, put on makeup and prayed for me. And Helen died like 3 weeks after I got my transplant. So those people gave me instructions as to how to die. And they gave me instructions as to how to live. So even if they're saying to you, you have cancer, you have renal failure, this is a bad situation, you can still live. You can put on makeup and go to dialysis and be of good cheer. Even though your life looks bleak, you can pray for somebody else. And Helen prayed for me. I had another friend, George, George was 89. And George said, I want to live long enough to see you get a kidney and get out of here. George came to the hospital the day after I got my transplant, and George died 3 months later.
Wow.
So I have to live my best life because I know people that were good people that gave it their all, and they transitioned, but they're in my heart, and they give me strength every day, and I don't forget them. My friend Anna had ascites, which means that you have fluid on your stomach from your kidneys not functioning. We were having a conversation on Friday. Anna died Friday night. I never saw her again. So I have to go on. I have to tell people that no matter your circumstance, no matter how bad you think it is, you can still live with a dignity that is beyond your circumstance.
Absolutely.
That is so inspiring.
When my mother passed, it was like a bingo. My mother had cancer, then she didn't, then I had cancer, then I didn't, then she had it again, and then that was the end of that. But what I learned in the process of being with her was how the way that we carry ourselves through it affects everybody. I was always very conscious of what was going on with the nurses and things around me and the other people, because you build a sense of community when you're going in and doing dialysis or chemo or whatever. I mean, because you're going to see the same people all the time. It's going to be the same nurses. It's generally going to be the same patients, except for the fact that people pass and things happen. So, but you build this kind of community, and there are the people who handle themselves with what I would consider to be a certain level of dignity, and they're conscious of their effect on everyone. So they're kind, and the nurses respond in kind. They can be so compassionate at a time when you need it more than anything. And then there are the people who are just full of what I say piss and vinegar, who are just angry at everything and everybody, and they can make life kind of hell for everybody, because they kind of poison the energy of the room. You're in a space where you just want to be at peace and get through it, and then they'll come in.
You know what though, Charles? I tried very hard to understand those people. I was very good friends with two men that wound up passing away on dialysis, and one of them was angry with God the whole time, and died angry. Mm-hmm. And it gave me instructions as to I didn't want to die like that. Mm-hmm. But dialysis is very tricky, as chemo is too, because some people aren't on very long. And I'll tell you a really quick story. There was a young girl who was probably 18, and she had renal failure. So she came into dialysis like any 18-year-old with her, bubble gum, and I'm being facetious, but young girl. And so she was much more interested in going to the mall than her renal failure. Her mother was the one that was upset about the renal failure. Mm-hmm. As it turns out, she had a sister in Michigan, and her sister gave her a kidney. So she was only on dialysis for like a week.
Oh, wow. That is great.
And there were many people there that had been on for 15 years
Oh, my God.
And it had really taken a toll on them, and they were very, very sick. So I'm trying to get to the point of that the nuances as to being sick. And one of the older guys that was really, really always in a bad mood, she was like, okay, guys, I'm not on dialysis anymore. My sister's giving me a kidney in Michigan. Bye. And so she walked out of dialysis like that.
Oh,
wow.
No.
And the rest of us who are literally dying in the chairs all around, this one guy stands up and he goes, can you swear on this podcast?
Yes.
This guy goes, ain't that some shit? And everybody in the room started laughing because we were all thinking the same thing. We were all thinking,
Wow.
how dare you with
That
your
was
young little bubblegum self come in here and get
No
a kidney in a
lie.
week and be like, bye, guys.
that's a little tone deaf for
And
sure.
so this is the point I'm getting to about the nuance of sickness. As much as we had to understand the anger of some people, we had to understand the innocence and the youth and the frivolity of being 18 and not really understanding what death is or not really understanding what the situation was. So she had every right to be gleeful and walk out of there. So there's so many ways that you can take this. And compassion is one of those things that I learned, was because as much as I was accepting that guy that stood up and said, ain't that some shit? I had to understand that she was very happy that she wasn't sick anymore.
Yeah.
So you take it and you give it, and you have to understand the middle ground of what that is. She had every right to be happy that she was getting out of there. Now, she was too young to understand that she needed to be more
Her response
understanding
was,
of those of us who were
Careful of her
stuck there.
words. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
But
think, Michael?
go ahead.
Oh, the thought just escaped my head. But it's not taking things personally. It's having enough empathy to kind of translate what people are saying.
100%. 100%. You have to go, okay, if I was getting out of it, now I will tell you, I took her example, and when I got my kidney, I went to the Bible bookstore and got little angels medallions, and I bought 50 of them because there are 50 people on dialysis with me at a time.
Oh, wow.
And I gave everybody an angel.
Oh,
And I walked to everybody's station and I said, I'm praying for you to get out of here. And I gave all the doctors and nurses an angel. And because that's the way I felt like I needed to go out of there. And
understood.
the thing about it is, not everybody's kidney takes. So you may be walking your happy self out of there thinking, oh, I got a kidney. And you might wind up on
could
dialysis
reject it.
again because
Right.
there's a failure rate with kidneys.
Wow.
So
Something.
I had a very good understanding that it was just a transitional thing. All of this it's how you deal with your life. You can choose to be gleeful and inquisitive and happy, or you can choose to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ooh, that's so hard for people to accept. It's so much easier to blame God, the man, the
Everything.
government.
No, it's you.
It's
It's
you.
you. It's everything is. I take everything personally because I think, well, I could have shown some compassion in that situation, or I could have handled it in a different way, or I consciously edit myself and go, what can I do to be of service? And that takes the impetus off of me. If I can go, you need my help. What can I do to help you? Then I don't think about how it affects me as much. Because I could, and I learned these things on dialysis, because I could get up and function every other day. There were so many people on dialysis that didn't have families that went back to nursing homes. So I made as many Thanksgiving meals as I could because I could still get up and cook.
There you go.
So I took food to them because some people were just going back to a nursing home and they couldn't eat. You can't drink any water on dialysis. So you have to edit what you cook, and I knew how to cook a renal diet. So that was my way of helping,
Wow.
Wow.
even though I was sick. But I could get up
But
every
that
other
helps
day.
you because it gave you a mission. That
Yes, it
I
helped
found
me.
that for me, I had to have. Well, that's why I went out on tour, because everybody was like, "Well, surely you're going to quit this job, right?" Because I found out while in rehearsal, that I had cancer and I was going to have to do chemo, and they were like, "Well, sure, certainly you're going to stop the job, right?" And I was like, "No." Literally, the first question I asked them after they told me I had cancer was, "Does this mean I can't work?" And they were like, "Well, you're going to have chemo every 2 weeks." And I was like, "There are planes I can fly. I
Yeah.
will figure it out."
And you
And
figure
I
it out.
did. And I was sick as a dog. But the bottom line was, it gave me a reason to keep going.
Yep. Whatever that reason is,
Yep.
you have to find it.
Yeah.
So, to get you through, Michael, was it a combination of faith, finding purpose, and helping others? What's I guess not to summarize, but what were the key elements of now whenever you come across another hard time, this will get me through?
Oh, it was 100% that night that they told me that I was going to die. Well, I didn't fill you in on all of that, but that night, well, that afternoon, it was a Sunday. And I went in for a test, and if you've ever been in the hospital, nothing happens on a Sunday in the hospital.
No, it doesn't.
So I had this test, and she came out. The nurse, we had been laughing and talking, and she came out of the screening room, and they put you in for all the radiation tests, but then they go out and they hide themselves. So she came back in, and she was taking off her protective gear, and she said, I said, "What's wrong with you?" And she said, "Oh, nothing." I said, "No, we were just laughing and now something's wrong." And she said, I can't say anything to you. And I said, "No, we were just laughing. There's nobody here. So just tell me." And she said, "I don't think you're going to live."
Just like that.
Just like that.
Oh, Lord.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, I think your numbers are really bad, and I don't think you're going to live." Now, this was before the team came in the next day and got those results from that test. And they officially, because when you're dying, there's like 8 people that come in and they are very official about it. And they give you the report, and they give your family the report that there's nothing they can do for you. And they recommend palliative care. And so what happened to me, and to answer your question as to how to get through that moment that woman said to me, "I don't think you're going to live," it was like a slow light switch that turned on, but there was a eventually bright white light that was in the corner of my room that stayed there for the whole 6 weeks that I was in the hospital. And during those weeks, my grandmother, who's deceased, came and sat with me twice. And now when I tell this story, some people think I'm crazy, people who don't believe, but this is what happened to me. And my partner's father came to sit with me twice. And when I turned to, I was so happy to see them. When I turned to look at them, they would go away. The second time it happened with Joe's dad, that came and sat with me, and they sat with me and rubbed I had an enlarged stomach. And in order to get rid of that stomach, they would literally cut a hole in your stomach and put a tube in and let the infection flow out. So 12 gallons at a time, the infection would, that's how big I was.
Wow.
And Joe's dad would come and put his hand on my stomach. And I knew that it was going to be okay. And that's what I told you about knowing no matter what, whether I lived or died, it was going to be okay. And that was the key. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. Now you have to, it's a double message. You have to come with the faith and the commitment and the love of God to go even through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. That's what you do on your part. And the rest of it, in my experience, takes care of itself. If you go, I'm willing to give myself over to the process of good will happen. I will be okay. The worst has happened. I've had cancer. I've had 4 hip replacements. I've had renal disease. I've had all these things go wrong. What people would think is wrong, but I'm okay. All I have needed, I'm okay. Everything that I truly need, I'm okay. The rest of it, I can do without. And I think that's what gets me through. My faith in the process of, I know that the good deeds, and this is the other thing that I did not say, when I was hooked up to a room full of machines, I thought I'm never going to get out of this room. But I hope that I've done enough for God to know my soul and God to know the intent of my heart, the intention of my heart. And so now that I'm not sick anymore, I live like that. I go, I'm going to be okay, and you're going to be okay too. As long as you listen to the intention of your heart and proceed with the intention that good will come, then you're going to be okay. But you have to be willing to go. If this is my last day, I'm still okay. Everything that I've done has led me up to the point of going, I have contributed, I have participated, I have done good work, I've done the best I could. That's all I can do.
Wow. Oh my gosh. You're only our second guest, but I'm blown away. Like literally I'm crying right now. I can't.
But all you can do is the best you can do and go, God, help me do the best I can do for myself. And this is the other thing that happened to me. I was on my way to the gym 3 years ago. I've had a kidney for 6 years now. So 3 years ago, I was on my way to the gym and I thought, I have so much joy in my heart. What are you going to do about that, Michael? You're going to tell somebody. You're going to tell anybody who will listen to you that the purpose is to get yourself to a happy place and get everybody that you know to a happy place, and be willing to do the dirty work to get there. The goal is happy.
Yeah.
And if you can do something to make someone else's day better or to make your day better, those things count when you're dying.
Isn't that what people
Whether
struggle?
you are skinny or whether you fit into a nice outfit or whether you have a great dinner, all of that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is the good impact that you've had on yourself and the people around you.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think people get lost trying to find happiness, though. It seems to be an elusive thing to them. They don't know how to keep a hold of it, or they might find it, but then it slips out of their hands again. Do you think that's because they're thinking about what happiness is in the wrong way?
Well, happiness is whatever is in your heart. And it cannot be affected by what other people think about you or what you think that they might want to have for you or their judgment. Happiness has to be what truly, when you lay your head down on the pillow and go, that's all I've done, that's all I can contribute. That's happy.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It may not be, it may just be you sitting with your dog.
Yeah.
It may be something, and it may be lowering your expectations. Expectations are a horrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest curse in the world, is that I expect that I'm going to be doing this, or I expect that I should be treated this way. No.
Yeah.
No, you expect the best from yourself, and then the rest of it is gravy. If somebody thinks something good of you, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But you do the best you can. And that's happiness.
Do you think expectations are a form of entitlement, a sense of entitlement?
Oh, I just think expectations are just awful. It's just a terrible thing for me to go, I expect you to treat me this way because I do this for you, or because I do this or do whatever, I expect that this will happen. Sometimes it doesn't happen.
Mm.
And then what do? You do things because it's in your heart to do it.
Yeah.
And that's it. And if something good happens, you may be the best intentioned person in the world and somebody may think, oh, he's such an asshole. But that's their perception. You do good things, you do your best, and then that's it. And you don't expect anybody to do anything else. Because they may have burdens in their heart that they can't see the good things that you're doing. Yes. So expectations, I think it's a horrible, horrible thing. It's one of the worst things in mankind is expectations.
That is such a profound statement that I've never heard somebody so eloquently and concisely say, you know.
I had a long time to think about dying. Isn't that a blessing?
Yeah.
I mean, I sat there every day and I really thought about it. And I thought, there's nothing I can do about it. But what a gift. I had 2.5 years on dialysis to think about dying, basically.
Yeah. And then you were given more time.
I could have had a heart attack and that would have been it.
Right.
And I tried to pay attention to the process.
Wow.
And that's what I came up with. Is all I could do was the best I could do. And sometimes it was like, okay, the best I can do is try to eat. I would get myself a McDonald's, a McGriddle sandwich on the way back from dialysis every other day. Because the way dialysis works is when they take all the blood out and all the urine out and they clean it and put it back, you pass out for about 4 hours. So I was blessed that I could drive. My dialysis clinic was 15 minutes away from my house. So I had about 25 minutes until I passed out. So I had time to get a McGriddle sandwich and get to the house. And sometimes I would try to eat it and it would make me vomit. And Joe would go, okay, we're just going to eat as many bites of the sandwich as you can. And so that was my expectation for the day, was to just have a couple of bites of McGriddle. And so if I could do that, then I was golden. I was like, oh, this is a good day. So my expectations were so low that I was like, whatever I can do, if I could just, and there were days when I was in a diaper and I just thought, okay, well, if I just can make it to the bathroom and I don't crap on myself today, then this is a really good day.
This is making me think of the Holocaust survivors that you hear interviewed, and you think, man, I don't know how it gets worse than genocide and nearly being burned in an oven or gassed, and all the horrific things they saw and witnessed and experienced. And yet there's some of them live to be incredibly old and are very happy. And you just think later on in life, and you just think, how, after everything you've seen and gone through, but
because they know the darkness.
They know
the darkness, and they know the darkness well. And once you know darkness like that, the light is so enticing. You can't ever live in darkness once you know better. Yeah. And I was so sick for so long that I refuse to live in darkness.
And darkness comes from, I think, often, like you're saying, these expectations that are debilitating, because they make you feel like your life should be something else, and because it's not the way what you think you deserve, you're going to be miserable, and then you're going to make everybody else miserable around you, and then before you know it, your life passes, and it's been horrible.
You can't wallow in the day to day. When you wallow in the day to day, you negate the future.
True.
If you're going, oh, this is a terrible day, I can't wait till my day off on Friday, then what are you doing for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Right.
You're negating those days when something fabulous could happen to you. If you're like going, oh, I wish it was payday. Well, that might be in 2 weeks. So what? The rest of the 2 weeks is crap.
Yeah.
You're waiting on something that you might get hit by a bus and never see that payday.
Right.
So if you're negating today, waiting for something that may not happen tomorrow, what are you doing? And I to bring it out of a dark place, I'm actually recording 4 songs right now. And I'm in the studio doing some work, and I'm doing it because I don't know where God's leading the next chapter of my life. And I'm singing these songs because I've been saying I wanted to record for my whole life. So when are you going to do it? Now. If you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? So I made it happen, and I'm getting ready to go in the studio on Monday and lay down the second track. But I feel like there's no day like today. What are you waiting for? If you're going to do something, you need to get up and be about doing it, because like I said, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, then you didn't get to do anything. And I've always been saying that I wanted to record some things. So I'm doing 4 Sammy Davis tracks, because Sammy's a big influence in my life musically. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do that and ride out this pandemic.
Part of our podcast, Michael, I'm sure Charles has described to you, but a lot of it is art that comes in to help people get through hard times. And so the fact that you've led such an incredible life, and you've learned so much, and now you're teaching us so much, and you're doing something that is helping you grow and express, and no day like today, if we could include a snippet of it on this interview of you, that would be amazing. I think our listeners would be thrilled to hear what you would.
I will absolutely. I'll send it to you as soon as we get done.
Wonderful. I can't wait. Well, I don't have to, it's funny because generally there's this transition between, okay, that was your horrible story, but what good came out of it? But you have already covered the whole
Oh, I'm
thing.
so sorry. I feel sad for
No,
you guys.
no, 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 no,
Because
no.
listen, I really
Doll,
believe that. I mean, if you
every
don't,
word that you have said has been just a blessing, and I'm so happy. I keep saying, so many people have, I know so many people that have passed, and I've consistently asked the cosmos the same question, but why am I still here? If you do any kind of equation, there's no reason I should be here, but I still am. So my thought constantly is, if I'm here, then I need to make the most of it. I need to
yeah,
do
you
the
need to
most
do it.
with it that I can.
Yep.
And a big part of that, especially in the wake of a few legacies of people that were terribly close to me, is to do good, do some good, Um, uh,
That's all you have. I mean, really,
yeah.
that's all you have. I had this conversation with my minister a week before last, about a little bit about death. Someone had passed away in the church, and she said, what do you do if you don't have any faith?" And I said to her, "Faith has many faces, and for many people think, oh, I have to go to church and I have to pray this
Mm-mm.
way, or I have to go to synagogue and I have to pray this way." No, it's not. It's Faith is a very personal thing that can happen anywhere. And it
Right.
does not have to be in any kind of defined church situation or any kind of structured situation. It's a conversation that you have with the universe, that I want to do better because I know better. And I had a friend of mine a Jewish young lady who said, "Michael, there's a lot of paths to heaven. Who am I to say that your path is better than mine? And who are you to say that your path is better than mine, or my path is better than yours?" So we're all trying to get to the same place. We just have different paths of getting there. And I'm not a big person that prays to rocks or anything like that. But if a rock makes you happy and you need to pray to that rock, then you need to pray to that rock.
Right.
I'm not going to judge you. Religions are man-made. Your
Hmm.
spiritual faith is between you and your God of choice.
Hmm.
They're different things.
Yeah. And what was so motivating to me early on in this interview was when you said your life can be rock bottom and you can still put on makeup and be there for somebody else. I mean,
Helen, who had cancer and had renal failure, she
so,
put on makeup my last day and put a good face on it and said, "I'm going to pray for you." And she had compassion for me.
and I think
That's a big lesson that she
that's
taught.
huge because so many people will say, well, but I have to go to work and I have all of these responsibilities and, I don't have time to pursue my own happiness. And
Yeah,
it's
isn't
really
that sad?
sad,
Because your own happiness makes it emanates to other people.
right?
If you can figure that out for yourself and not apologize for it and go, "You know what? I want the best for you too.
Right.
I want the best for me and I want the best for you too."
Yep. So, Sammy makes you happy. What other things make
Sammy
you
has
happy?
always made me happy, and so I have had a long relationship. My uncle was a groovy '60s kind of guy, and he loved the whole notion of casino. And even though he lived in a very small town, he was like, "I have a convertible GTO, and I'm a cool cat."
Right.
And so he liked Sammy, and so he made me like Sammy. And so he's like, "Sing along with him. You sing as well as he does," and which was not true. But certainly years later, I have developed the artistic appreciation for what that is, and for Christmas got a 4 CD set of all of a compilation of his music, and have pretty much been addicted to it for my whole adult life. So
Awesome.
I'm working on a club act whenever COVID is over, which is Sammy and Me in the Tub. And because I take baths, I'm a bath taker. And so I get in the tub and I still, it's as old as it is, I still have my 4 CD set. And I go in there and I turn it up and I turn up the bubbles and I sing along with Sammy. And so this is the love that I have. It's queer, but it's what makes me happy.
I love
And
it.
so,
I love it.
That's brilliant.
even to this day, it's something that my Uncle Bill gave me, and I love it. And so, I'm just gonna. I'm a big band singer at heart, and so I'm just gonna do that. And religious pursuit is something that it really interests me since I've been given this miracle in my life. So I'm open to what happens, and so I'm doing this because we're under COVID, and I can record, relatively safely. So I'm going
Right.
to do this, and then I'm going to do a club act, like I said, when this is all over, because I want to constantly be planning and working on something.
Right.
And then seminary may be in my future, but we'll see. I'm open to listening to what God has to say and what the universe has to say, but I have these conversations with people about their lives and what they're doing with their lives and how important each moment that you take. You don't know when it's going to be your last moment, so why put off things? So I find myself having these conversations with people all the time, and very deep conversations about death with people. So lots of sick people come to talk to me, and I don't know why that is. They pick
Oh,
me
I
out in the
do.
crowd, but it happens all the time.
No, but it works.
so-
It makes sense.
It makes
I'm
sense.
so open to it, and I think people should have conversations about how to live with dignity, but also how to die with dignity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm open to that. So whatever the universe has for me, I'm excited about it. I mean, I didn't die. That's a cool thing.
Yes, indeed. And
And-
we're thankful. I cannot wait to see how this plays out for you. I really can't. And I hope you keep us in the loop so that we can.
Well, you will be, but the thing is, I don't have any expectation. That's what I told you about the expectation thing. I'm
True.
just doing what I can.
And I understand. And we're just going to watch and see how it plays out.
Well, this is a blessing that you call me, Charles. I feel very lucky that this happened. So,
Thank you so much for joining us.
We are blessed to have had you. Thank you
This
so
was
much for this.
such an important conversation that I think many people need to hear right now.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it. I do thank you.
Okay.
Bye, kids.
Bye. And now we have an excerpt of Michael singing a little Sammy for us. Hope you guys enjoy.
You won't believe me, they nursed it, rehearsed it, and then gave up the news that the Southland gave a birth to the blues. Oh, they nursed it, rehearsed it, and gave up the news that old Southland gave birth to the blues. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was Michael Demby Kane with an excerpt from Birth of the Blues, assisted by his musical director, Charles Santoro. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Conscious Compassion. We'd love to hear your input and to hear what you do to make it through.
You can reach us on our website at consciouscompassion.net. We've got some amazing interviews coming up that we can't wait for you to hear.
Until then, catch you next time. I'm Charles Gray.
And I'm Laura Darrell.
Conscious Compassion, where
Where
sharing
sharing is caring.